Hey guys, I just wanted to take you through the basics of the stance and guard. Now there's a few components to this. I'm just going to look at the external components today. If you haven't looked at the video on centering, take a look at that one because that's the beginning of the internal components of it, and you want to have that on at all times. Now, in regards to the externals, the Wing Chun stance and guard is shaped in a triangular shape, the whole body, so that it's kind of a triangular prism so that it can crack through guards, but also take control of the center and also give you access to all your weapons at once. Now, I'll go through the shapes and stance first, and then we'll go through some of the whys and whats after that. So firstly, you want to start with your feet together to measure out. So maybe you can look down, feet together. And then you bend your knees slightly. You point, so your feet together completely. So you see Anton will want them to come completely together, good. And then feet together completely, then you bend your knees slightly, point your toes outward. Yeah. You want to try go to pretty much as far as possible. Yeah. And then you keep off the balls of the feet, you then go with your heels outward to create a triangular stance. So, come up a bit and you see Anton's knees are slightly bent. Now when we bend our knees, what you want to, if you come back down to look here, you don't want to put your weight down into the floor because that kind of makes you stuck. You're kind of stuck in that position. It's more like an opening of the joint forward, so it's like it's ready to kick. It's an opening to bend it so that you can still step and move forward. Okay, so that's the leg positions. So the leg is in that shape, the legs. And then with the hands, you start with your hands on your hips, and then you bring them up in front of you to make joining them together like a triangle. Now with the hand shapes, you want to be sure that your fingers are working together so that they work like a plank of wood, because it's much more difficult for me to bend and break his fingers when they're working as one than if they're separate. Actually, I was talking to a mate, I think it was you, so he's talking about how when you put several sticks together, they're stronger as together as a unit as opposed to as individual units. So you want them working as one. Now, from here, you bring one hand back. Generally speaking, it's good to have it slightly higher than the other elbow, so here, so that if this is collapsed, then he's still free to use this hand, rather than if it's lower, you can trap both easier. Now,
do you want people leading with their left or the right?
Good question. It doesn't really matter whether you lead with left hand or right hand, because that really depends on where the opponent's coming from. So if Anton faces me and the fight's here, then either way is fine. But if there's a fight on and there's a lot of things happening and someone's coming from this side, you know, whatever, if Anton turns towards me, that might be the natural position with the left hand. Or from here, he might find it easier. Yeah, see how naturally your right hand wanted to come out. Because this one also, if someone was approaching from, if you face that way, from this side, he might strike with this and then end up with that in the lead. So it's interchangeable really, especially because we do a lot of cross punching as well. Good question. So if we face front on again, so the hands will be on our center as well. So you'll see that Anton's hands are on our center, and they'll, on his center, sorry, and they'll be aimed at the center line of the opponent. So if he faces me now, they'll be aimed directly at my center. Approximately around the throat and chin height, so that he can easily strike to the vulnerable points here, but also strike lower and higher in the quickest fashion. Because if his guard was actually lower here towards me, see how it'll take a lot longer for his hands to come up here, there, to defend himself, but also to strike. So you aim around here. Now, the reason he keeps them on his center line is so that he's got his hands in front of, if you face that way again, in front of his eyes, nose, mouth, throat, solar plexus, and the groin. So the hands are on the center so they can quickly and easily defend that center. Now, why the center line? Why straight down here? Because this takes advantage of the shortest distance between 2 points, meaning it's faster. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Hence, as soon as we come into combat, if Anton goes to strike with this lead hand, he's got the shortest distance covered. Now that means also, if I go to strike down that line, he's naturally got some defense mechanisms there to cover his center straight away. Now, what that forces the opponent to do to go around the outside, hence taking a longer time. So he can either strike right through before I get to him, or even defend and simultaneously attack. Now, other reasons that we have the stance and guard in this position is that if we take a look at Anton's legs now, if in the side here, in this position here, the incoming force into his body, if you withstand my force, can travel straight down into the floor as I put pressure in towards him, yeah? Whereas if he puts his feet outwards, I point him right out, and then I put the same pressure on his body, can you see the pressure I'm putting in here? If I put that same pressure into his body, see how quite easily it is to destabilize him, yeah? So that actually makes him a stronger structure for absorption. So if he puts his feet back in. Now, this shape also allows the legs to naturally cover his center and attack my center. So if Anton goes to raise either of his legs towards me, see how naturally it wants to come up towards my center, strike my groin. Meaning also if I go to kick him and he raises his leg, he's defended his center, but also attacked towards mine. Whereas if he points his legs out like this, and then if you go to raise your leg, see how it wants to go that way?
Yeah.
Yeah. The direction of the leg is already pointing into your opponent, meaning it'll be faster. And there's another saying is, which is similar, where your eyes go, your body goes. Like if you're riding a bike and you're looking at the tree, you hit the tree. So you kind of think about your whole body like eyeballs in the sense that they're all looking into the other person's center. Now, so from here, he puts his stance and guard up. Now, since he's got this center covered, now there's a few exercises here we can do now, sorry. The first exercise I like to work with is just making sure the hands, knees, and toes stay on center. So here's my center line, and it's a very simple exercise at the beginning, is that as I move, Anton wants to stay facing me, stay facing me, stay facing me. So I move around, facing, facing, facing. Very simple, he just stays facing. And as I move back, he wants to stay chasing towards me. Now, if you check out the feet, you'll want to, so check out the feet now as I move and see if they're actually pointing the knees and toes toward me. Yeah. Whereas that's the most common thing for people to mistake, is that if you look at my feet now, and if you move around and I go to follow you, is that the feet will come off center, meaning I'm leaving, and keep moving around, meaning I'm leaving myself open, and also my body mass isn't going straight towards him. Whereas if I follow straight onto him, if you look down at my feet and I move towards him, now from here, my legs are always ready to kick, strike, and my mass is always coming towards him. So this is a good exercise to just practice footwork, for lack of a better word, because really you just want to move your body towards the person, but you do want to get yourself in a habit of your knees and toes from the beginning pointing into your opponent's center. Now, a couple of reasons why we face front on now in regards to the stance and guard. Our system, or the Wing Chun system, is developed for real fighting, street fighting. So in the street, when you get into a self-defense situation, it's useful to have all your weapons at the ready. So in this position here, Anton can use his left arm, his right arm, his elbows, knees, feet quickly. They're all at a position where he can kick and attack quickly. Whereas if he turns to a side-on stance, this isn't saying that side-on stances are bad, because it really depends on the practitioner. It's just different. Now, a side-on stance gives him 2 quicker weapons and 2 slower ones. Yeah? So he can use these fast, and these ones are more predictable because you can see them coming. Now, another reason for the front-on stance, with the stance and guard, if you come front-on, is that, so apart from the faster weapons, is that from here it's more difficult to actually blindside him, meaning get around behind him and strike him from the back. So if I turn here and he keeps faced at me, see, it's easier for him to keep his vision open, to keep me in front of him. Because the last thing you want in a self-defense situation is someone behind you, because then, they can hit you whenever they want. Whereas with a side-on stance, the advantage in the ring, I suppose, is that you are less of a target. You see, there's less of you to strike, so there's less points to be scored, whereas the street isn't for scoring points. So if a person is fast enough, they may be able to get around to the blind side. Now, striking to the back, the spine, or even to the back of the head can be quite deadly. It's illegal in competitions to strike to the back, especially to the back of the neck, so they can rest your arms, because that's called a rabbit punch, and that can actually kill you. Now, in the ring, if I get behind Anton, I can't strike him now. It's not legal. But in the street, that is possible. You can strike to the back. You can strike here. So in competitions, you're safe, but in the street, when you give your back to someone, you're not. So there are a couple of the reasons for the front-on stance. There are more, and I'm sure there's a lot of Wing Chun practitioners out there, so put the other reasons below so that you can share with anyone else who's watching more reasons why we do that. Now, other exercises you can use the stance and guard for, apart from just being locked on like radar, is that as Anton faces up to me and he puts his toes slightly in, back straight, is you can actually start putting pressure on their stance. So you can just push on their stance. Now, it's not wrong to step back, meaning ride the incoming force. So if Anton pushes on towards me, pushes in, push on my guard, and my body gets moved back, that's fine, because I still have this space here. So I still push, I still have this shield, this gap between me and my hands. But if I do this and he pushes on, this is a problem, because this means he can trap me but also strike me. It means he's basically hitting me. So yeah, so basically with this exercise now, you'll have your partner put pressure on your stance. What your objective to do is to keep it out there by maintaining your center and keeping your focus at them. You want to do this by maintaining balance, centering, and focus at them. So meaning pointing these at your opponent. So he keeps that on, yeah, he moves back, and that's fine. Yeah, push on. He keeps focused at me. So this is in addition to that last exercise, and then put pressure on, put pressure on. So he's keeping that shield there for himself, yeah? So that's another exercise you can work with. Thanks. Put the guard up. Another one you can work on as well is actually absorbing pressure. So first, Anton, this is a way to actually feel what I mean by it. So first, have your partner push on and resist with muscle. So Anton's going to use his muscular force to try and stop me pushing in. So use your muscle force, and we'll put pressure on. He's going to see how that reacts on his body. Now what he's going to do, he's going to try and feel springy, as though he can absorb pressure in by maintaining his center, keeping himself nice and open, but then allowing my incoming force to travel into his hands. Now what will happen is that it feels like he's loading up now. His arms are loading up, so if I take them off, they spring towards me. Now, you'll notice that Anton's body came up a bit. That's fine, but essentially you want to try and make it so that the body doesn't. So if you're putting pressure on me, yeah, and then you release. Yeah. So firstly, I was moving back there. Keep pushing. That is fine also. As he puts pressure on this time, if I want to absorb it in and then he releases, the hands spring forward. So the body can move back, but you also want to be absorbing pressure in so they can spring out if they need to. Because balance is key here. If, for example, if Anton pushes on me, push on again, and I start pushing back towards him, and then he lets go, that's what we don't want to happen, yeah? So he allows that pressure to come in, he keeps his balance so that these can spring forward towards me, or if the pressure's too much, it goes back, but they still have that springiness. They're still springing out towards the target. Okay, next exercise you can do with it from the stance and guard is pulling. So he'll follow me once again, and I'll pull his guard towards me. So he wants to maintain his stance and guard, yeah, as I pull and maintain balance. You can pull, and then you can also push as well. So you're pulling and pushing, yeah? He stays focused on me. Anton wants to try and move as little as possible and just stay focused on me. And push, pull, push. Cool. Another exercise with stance and guard you can do, it's a very simple one. Is if Anton puts up his guard now, is just keeping focus on the target. Very simple one. And then from here, just keeping it on the center, yeah? These are very simple exercises to start, but of course this is for the beginner. Yeah? Cool. When doing that exercise as well, be careful not to smash them on their fingers, okay? You want to be aiming for the arms and the bottom of the hand as well. Okay, so things to think about. Make sure you stay nice and upright. You start by putting your feet together, bend the knees, point the toes out, and then the heels out to have that triangular shape. Bring the hands up into a triangular shape. Bring your one hand back, making sure that the hands are working as one unit. And keep this stance and guard focused on the center of your opponent as they move. Okay, if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. Thanks very much for watching.